continue with the introductions. Just name, title, role, and then a little foreshadowing, but also an icebreaker. Your favorite creative activity as a child growing up.
All right, I'll kick it off. Danny Levin, I lead innovation for snacking here at Kraft Heinz, and I would say my favorite creative activity as a kid was playing The Sims. I would like type in that cheat code to get all the money and then just like build mansions, and it was awesome.
Hi, everybody. Sam Mills. I am on our brand communications team, leading a portfolio that includes Lunchables. And one of my favorite ways to be creative as a child was to make up plays with my sister that we would then force my parents to sit and watch.
I'm Alyssa Cicero. I am a senior brand manager on the brand communications team for Lunchables. And when I was a kid, I was a mini entrepreneur. So my friends and I would like to make crafts and then sell them at lemonade stands. So very, very artsy as a kid.
Love it. I guess I should close the loop. I was just a Lego guy. We didn't have the Star Wars collection out yet, a little aging myself, but definitely a Legos guy. All right, so Lunchables. Let's kick this off. Sam, I'm going to turn it to you. Yeah. Paint the picture for us. So start high level, the core business challenge, some of the work you did, to uncover some of the insights that led to the amazing work we're about to share.
Yeah, so this chapter of Lunchables really starts in 2019. And as some context on the business situation at the time, the business was really starting to stagnate. And one of the measures we pay very close attention to is household penetration. And as you can imagine, a lot of our consumers are kids. And kids ultimately age out of our product. So for long-term health of the brand, we really need to be focused on bringing in new consumers, new kids. And we were seeing household penetration really starting to flatten and decline, and that raised alarm bells for us. So we said, okay, what's going on? And spent some time understanding our millennial consumer, the parent who's purchasing the product. And what we learned is that Lunchables is known for its towering strength of convenience. However, for this particular consumer, this is the first generation of parent that's really growing up parenting on social and is just seeing the bar and the standards raised so high. And so convenience had really started to become a bit of a guilty word, something to feel shameful of. You weren't taking the time to create it yourself. And so Lunchables, by nature of that, started to be something that parents were felt guilty to buy and a little ashamed of. So we said, okay, cool, great. Glad we kind of diagnosed the problem, but now how do we solve it? And that started really with saying, okay, what about our product is special to today's kid? How do we drive that pester power with kids so they're begging mom and dad or their caretaker for the product? And then what's the way we can alleviate that parent guilt and make them feel better about saying yes? So that was really the challenge that we kind of gave to ourselves, is figure out what that really special thing is that can work for both kid as consumer as well as parent, the purchaser. And that kind of kicked off the work that led us here today.
So extremely relevant as a father of three and many, many crazy situations in the household. Your brand has helped diffuse a lot of hangriness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of tense moments, so thank you. But completely related, I'm sure a lot of the parents in the room as well, the guilt factor versus the actual convenience and the solution for the kids' hunger. So thank you for that, sharing that. Turn over to you, Alyssa. Campaign manifestation. How did all this come to life in the work?
There's going to be one thing that I say first before we turn it over to...
Please.
Because I think that we still needed to figure out what that special thing was about Lunchables, and that started with just spending time with kids eating our product and watching them and talking to them. And what we really saw and observed at the time was kids enjoy the act of building it and creating it. Every kid does that slightly differently. Like with our Cracker Stacker SKU, the ratio of meat to cheese to cracker, every kid had their own way of doing it and took such pride in that creation. And so that became like a really interesting aha moment for us that we then double clicked into with research and validated our kids, Lunchables kids, tend to be more interested than the average kid in creative activities. They're more likely to express interest in arts and crafts, more likely to be into Legos and puzzling. So that, to us, was something that was really exciting. And then we said, okay, well, what does that mean for our parent? And this parent, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is very intentional about all of the choices that they make to help set their kid up for success. And one of the things this parent is very intentional about is carving out space for creation rather than just passive consumption. This parent is one that is struggling with screen time because it does feel so passive, and they're looking for ways to really give their kids an opportunity to create. And so for us, that started to bring together this really simple articulation that for Lunchables, the opportunity was to say, we aren't just creative, we're not just fuel for the body, we're creative fuel for the mind. And if we could convince parents of this and show them that, that could be a way to really assuage the guilt that parents were experiencing. And then for kids, they already are delighting in this moment. And so our job just became, how do you really reinforce that behavior, give kids more inspiration and opportunity to get creative? And that led us to what became our single organizing idea, that Lunchables is built to be eaten. And that's then really where some of the work starts to come to life. And I'll show how that influences design, because as many in this room can imagine, design lead times are often the longest, so you need to get to market first. So this was our packaging in 2019. This was our packaging based on that organizing idea, where we're really hearing the food, showing it in that buildable fashion, and sparking kids' imagination. From there, the job was, how do you bring that to life in our campaign?
And Alyssa, take that away.
Yes, thank you, Sam. So one of the biggest and most important things for us to figure out was how we figured out what we were doing with film, because film is such an important storytelling aspect for us on Lunchables because it allows us to reach parents in co-viewing opportunities. So these are times when parents are watching video with their kids, whether it's TV or CTV or on YouTube. And we knew that we wanted a campaign that really felt entertaining to kids but provided value to parents. And so what we came up with were these larger-than-life Lunchables. And if you click to the next slide, this is an example of our campaign from a few years ago. So it kind of flashes between this imaginary world. So there's a little girl walking in a NASA astronaut costume. She's walking up to a rocket, and as she approaches it, she actually takes a bit of the rocket off and takes a bite because it's a pretzel. And it's not an actual rocket. It's a rocket made of Lunchables meat and cheese and crackers. And then we flash to the real world where she's in the kitchen with her parents and building a Lunchables rocket out of her Lunchables. So it kind of goes and shows this imaginary world with these kids, these larger-than-life builds, and then we go to the real world. And we knew it was really important for us to kind of have a rallying cry and an invitation for kids to really create what they wanted out of Lunchables. And thus the term Lunchabuild This kind of came to life. And this is how we encourage kids to build whatever they wanted out of Lunchables, whether it was a rocket ship or a giant bear or really anything they could think of. So we brought this to life with over 1,000 out-of-home units in 6 of our key markets. Anyone that was in Chicago, 2 years ago may remember the Lunchabuild bus. So you may have seen this CTA bus that was totally decked out in a Lunchables wrapper. Even things like bike racks.
I want to say one thing on this bus. We actually had kids dress up as the Lunchabuild bus for Halloween. It was incredible.
It was so fun to see. Or even bike racks. So we had bike racks that had giant Lunchabuild bikes on them next to the actual bikes. And all these units had QR codes on them. So kids and their parents could scan the QR code. They could get a blueprint to download and actually figure out how to build these things in real life. And there was actually a place that they could buy the specific products that made that Lunchabuild. So if you scanned that, you would get the product in order to build the Lunchabuild bike. We also had experiential events. So there was 3 really exciting experiential events that we led with these larger-than-life Lunchabuilds. And at these events, there were blueprints, there was products for kids to eat and build with. We had a giant bear at the Lincoln Park Zoo. There was an activation at the Field of Dreams game. And also a really cool activation with the Kids' Choice Awards where we had this Lunchabuild SpongeBob. So really meeting kids where they're spending time with their parents or in the Kids' Choice Awards, as an example, a place that we knew that they were entertained by and wanted to spend their time. We also knew it was really important to make this accessible for everyone. So we had a digital component as well. We had an AR lens on Snapchat where parents could like a blueprint and then put their Lunchabuild in their photos and send to friends and family. We had an influencer program, and we also know that gaming is so important to kids, so we activated within Minecraft and Roblox. So those are just some of the ways that this campaign kind of came to life initially, and it's continued to come to life since.
Just some of the ways?
Yeah.
That was very impressive. Congratulations. All right, Danny's been sitting here patiently. We all have Dunkables on our chairs. So, transitioning to you, Danny.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit of innovation. It is core to Kraft Heinz's DNA. We talked a lot about it already today. Help us understand how you infused innovation into Dunkables, please.
Sure. So just as innovation is a growth driver here for the whole company at Kraft Heinz, it's also a super important lever in driving success and growth for the Lunchables brand as well. So we introduced Dunkables, which you guys should all have on your seats, at least one of the SKUs, this past September. Really grounded in the insight of kid zipping culture. So making sure that we're staying relevant to kids, but also as we built the idea, making sure that we hold true to what Lunchables is as, you know, what we stand for and our purpose. So in order to ensure that successful extension, what we did was really say, okay, what are the Lunchables innovation guardrails, and how do we make sure we balance holding on to what is core to us? And so as we think about those dimensions, buildability is one, powering kids forward, whether that be fueling creativity or confidence or connection is another, driving eating guarantee, which really ties back to kid desire and tasting great, making sure we're pushing that parent acceptance, being multi-compartment, so really making sure all of those dimensions come through. And I think as you look at the Dunkables package maybe in front of you, you can see that we're holding on to a lot, right? We're driving buildability. Kids can, you know, grab, dip, top with the different components they can create to make it their own way that they want to. Eating guarantee, we did a ton of work with consumers to really make sure that the varieties that we launched and the way that they're tasting are what kids like and are kids approved. So we did a ton of consumer research with kids to validate that. So really layering up to, hey, this is what core Lunchables is all about, but how we're doing it in a different way to drive growth for the brand.
Very impressive. Back to you, Alyssa. So, campaign manifestation again, but maybe talk about the challenges or the differences between Lunchables and Dunkables and how that came to life.
Yeah, so I hope everyone's been able to enjoy the Dunkables on your seat, but you'll see it's a little bit different than our traditional Lunchables. So we had a new product and a new product proposition, and we wanted the idea of creativity to come to life in the campaign, but we knew it couldn't be exactly the same as what we were doing with the rest of the Lunchables portfolio. If anyone's opened their Dunkables, you'll see there's not really building components. It's dipping and dunking. So we actually were inspired for this campaign by giving kids our products. So we held focus groups with kids. We gave them our Dunkables products. And what we saw is that they weren't just eating it, they were imagining these entire worlds while eating. So it wasn't a pretzel stick that you were dunking in peanut butter. It was a volcano and there was lava. Or it was a pretzel sword. Or in this one that we have on the screen, the breadcrumbs were snow falling on cheese bricks. So kids weren't just eating, they were imagining, and they had these really crazy ideas that we then took and brought to life in our campaign. And so in a world, and I know we've talked about AI a lot today, and in a world that AI is constantly trending, we know AI is incredible, but we wanted to remind people of the original kind of creative, or the original place that we really get creativity from, and that is what we call KI, or kid imagination. And so that inspired our campaign that launched last fall, really putting AI versus KI in this campaign called Powered by KI, or Kid Imagination. So the assets that we developed were all inspired by these focus groups that we had with kids. So we have a chicken nugget that was actually in space, we had a pretzel sword, and we had a marinara submarine, all inspiration taken from the kids. So we brought this to life with these kid ideas. And anyone that maybe follows the ad trades or the news may have seen we launched a 2.0 of this week, where we put AI and KI to the test. So again, had focus groups of kids, we gave them a prompt, and we gave that same prompt to AI. And what we found is that AI is really incredible and it's very imaginative, but when we asked it to imagine a pretzel stick as something fantastical, it brought back pictures of pretzels, whereas kids brought back pictures of pretzel snakes and pretzel rockets and dragons and all these incredible things. So we're just really proud to be able to highlight kid creativity and use real kids to bring these campaigns to life.
It's amazing, and I highly encourage you, round of applause for that. And a couple great videos on your site, too, I know, YouTube, that really go into depth behind some of those creations that those kids are making, so very, very cool. Okay. To the best of your ability, we painted the picture for us, the business challenge, we dug into the insights, bringing the campaigns to life, innovation. Can you share a little bit about the results to date? I know this is a mixed room, so careful with what you say, but we would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think there's maybe two things that we can share when we look at the impact this work has had. The first is top line growth is really important to us, and so since 2019 we have grown double digits on top line growth, which is just like a really exciting place to be, that this single organizing idea can really help drive all aspects of the marketing mix in a way that can really propel the business. So that's one. The other that is something I'm really proud of as well is the recognition on the award circuit for the work that we've done. So we did win last year a gold Effie, and we also won a gold Lion at last year, and hoping that continues to be momentum we build creatively.
Very well deserved. Congrats. Okay, so wrapping up here, we have one more question. So in the audience, maybe think of a few questions, because we probably will have a few minutes at the end, so just planting that seed. But to wrap this up, this idea, the strategic framework of built to be eaten. Great idea, great strategy, built for the long term. Can you talk about how this is evolving, maybe a little sneak peek into what's coming down the pike here?
Yes, so there's maybe two things we can share. One is a refresh of our core campaign, and the other is another innovation project. I can touch on the campaign, which is when we sort of think about what we've done, we've spent the past few years really putting out these beautiful builds that are picture perfect, and it's really clear what they are. And then we look at what kids built. It's very different. And we had a moment where we're like, what is that? And it kind of unearthed this insight for us, for those of you who are parents or have had exposure to kids. When they create something and they show it to you, and you're like, I have no idea what that is, but you don't want to squash that moment of creativity, you want to celebrate it. We wanted to really bring that insight to life. So our new campaign is really thinking about that, and also leveraging some of these amazing creations kids gave us and using those as the core of our new campaign. So you'll see, we're going to be asking, what's your Lunchables?
And then from an innovation standpoint, another innovation that we launched last year on a much smaller scale, more as an MVP in partnership with Del Monte Fresh, actually, is Lunchables Fresh. It's basically your core Lunchable cracker stacker, so crackers, meat, cheese, and in place of the treat, you actually have a side of fresh fruit. And we saw a lot of success with that MVP to the point that we're now scaling that nationally, and super excited about what we get to bring to the table here with this offering, because it's so tied to what we are. You know, it's essentially a Lunchable, but it's pushing more and leaning into some of the other elements on our innovation guardrails. For example, parent acceptance, right? By having parents feel even better about buying a Lunchable because it comes with that side of fruit. So really excited to bring sort of the manifestation, evolution of our innovation pipeline with this offering and beyond.
And it's really fun because kids can build with fruit too.
Super smart. And again, as a parent, thank you. I love having the additional variety and the inclusion of fruit. So, well, great. Well, good job managing time, team. We did very well there. And as such, we have a few minutes here for Q&A for the crew, if there are any questions out there.
Come on, someone's got questions.
And trivia.
This is going to get awkward because I'm going to start calling on people.
My name is Molly, and I'm with Susie. I'm curious, obviously we have marketing and also R&D and innovation up here. I'm curious how you guys are working together on a weekly or monthly basis in these types of projects. So what does that workflow look like in order to have kind of a cohesive plan throughout?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's It's so frequent and not at all formal. So the conversations, the IMs, the pings are just fairly constant, if I'm being honest. But we also do add some structure to it. And so once a week, all of the marketing disciplines come together. We talk about priority projects, decisions that are needed, make sure we're consulting with each other along the way. So we do have that built in. The other thing that kind of helps formalize it is we have our annual planning process, which does allow us to all come together, align on big picture, align on the jobs to be done and where we need to go together to figure out how we can best partner across all of our respective disciplines. Also, you get a bag, a Lunchabuilder bag for asking the first question, and a t-shirt in case you wanted one too. I'll find you after.
Brian McGurr from Stingray. I noticed there's quite a few SKUs here, even in the room, but is there a challenge for you in terms of just managing out old SKUs and in new SKUs, or is this going to be a new aisle in the grocery store?
A little bit of both. No, I'm just kidding. We have lots of folks cross-functionally and on the marketing team that really pay a lot of attention to the manufacturing side, right, and how we make sure we manage waste and how we make sure, as you know, we do things like changing and evolving our design, that we're planning that accordingly. And that's, again, another reason why, you know, design especially is something that we have to get started on sooner rather than later to be able to manage end to end.
The other thing that I would say is when you think about store location, there is a limited amount of space that we can take up. And so there is a lot of intentionality around how you maximize that space, but for us to grow, how we're also thinking beyond. So the fresh innovation actually lives in the produce section of the store to help us expand our footprint. Another innovation that we didn't touch on today is we have our Lunchables grilled cheesies, which lives in the freezer aisle. So we're really truly thinking about where else are parents turning to in the grocery store for solutions and how can we meet their needs there.
It's great. We're getting lots of questions on Lunchables now.
Awesome. Hi, Betsy Ross from Barclay O'Carapy. As a mom and a marketer, you guys are doing a great job. My kids still love the products, even as they get into their teens. I just have to ask, is it hard to not be challenged or distracted by some of the more kind of adult-like products that are coming into this category in this space?
Yes. I think there is a question of how much that behavior happens on its own organically versus how much we need to really design to maximize our share of those consumers. So that's where we tend to think more portfolio strategy led at Kraft Heinz. And so there's a few different ways that we think about that adult target and making sure we're protecting Kraft Heinz share there as well.
Hi, I'm Paige. I'm from Wilson Coors. So creative, it's kind of as we talk, in hindsight's 2020, right? You're like, this was a great idea. Of course we said yes to all these things all the way along the way, right? But there's also always a lot of reasons to say no maybe that came up. So what are some of those things that came up and maybe why did you say, actually that's fine? For example, I'm thinking when I grew up, my mom would say, don't play with your food. And that's literally what's happening here. So kind of how did that maybe come into play as you were kind of growing the idea?
I think what makes this easier to say yes is it's so grounded in the insight of what actually happens when kids eat Lunchables. And because there's a benefit to that we can communicate, it allows us to say, yes, let's chase after that. It's ownable for us. It has a benefit to the kid. It has a benefit to the parent. You also can start to peel back the psychology of it, and one of the benefits of Lunchables also is the eating guarantee. Mom and dad know that when they put the Lunchables down, a kid's going to eat it all, and part of that is when kids are making it their way, they're more likely to eat it, just the way that sort of things work. So there's just so many small nuances and reasons why we continue to believe in that insight that makes it easy to say yes to the manifestations of it.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.